Hi, it's Theresa with Open Food Network and Garden Party Flower Farm. What you're seeing here is the story of the Toronto Flower Collective. And what I'm going to share in today's video is some tips we've learned about starting flower hubs or collectives in Canada. It has been a great pleasure for me to be working with farmers across the country on these projects. And I'm happy to share some of our findings today and some tips to get you started. So I'm not going to romanticize this. This is the cut and dried version of what you need to be up for if you're thinking of starting a cut flower hub. So stay tuned. Before we get started, a quick shout out to the Canadian Sustainable Agricultural Partnership and Open Food Network Canada who support these videos. So let's imagine how these hubs work. In essence, multiple different flower farmers list their products in a common store. The seller, who we call the hub manager, stages that store or any number of stores, and designers and florists are the buyers, and there can be multiple stores tagged for different kinds of buyers, etc. The store opens, people buy, the store closes. When the store closes, the action really begins with the farmers. So farmers receive an automated pick and pack list that tells them what they have to pick for their orders that were placed and who ordered them. So they pick and arrange their flowers by designer. And that's what you're seeing at the left. That's a grouping of my flowers in buckets for various designers, staged and ready to load into the vehicle. I delivered in an Impreza, and that's what you see loaded there. Here's a trivia question. How many buckets fit into an Impreza? So I'll leave you think on that. I'll come back. So at the hub spot or the pickup spot, and it can be many different kinds of places, there are usually volunteers or staff to help take the flowers from the vehicles of the growers and organize them in the space for each designer. So each designer has a kind of area that has all of their products that they bought from different growers assembled so that it's easy for the designer or florist to come pick up their order and put them in their vehicle. So there's variations on this model. It can work slightly differently in different places, but that is in essence the model. So how many flower buckets fit in an Impreza? 26. So where are these hubs? Again, this is a dynamic situation. Hubs come and go, but this is the situation as of December 2025. So we have two hubs in Alberta, one in Edmonton, one in Calgary. Interestingly, the uh, Cooperative Flower Network in Edmonton is the only one of these hubs that is formally incorporated as a co-op. The others run in different models. I can speak to the models in a second. And in Ontario, we have 6. Let me see if I can spread them apart. There is one in Ottawa. There's one in Muskoka. There's one in Grey Bruce. There's one in Toronto. There's one in Millgrove. And there's one in Niagara. So then, as you can imagine, this model has some benefits for designers. They now have one-stop shopping. They don't need to get invoices from all the separate farmers they buy from. They see all their products in one place. That means they get a lot more product diversity. It also means they can build strong relationships with these designers and farmers, and that can lead to mutual experimentation of new products, for example. They have the possibility now to do pre-ordering with specific farmers and to contract for the growing of things from specific farmers. And of course, they get fresher, less packaged, higher quality product with a lower ecological footprint for their design. Similarly, there are benefits for growers. Most growers find they have increased sales in this model. They need to grow fewer products. They can begin to move into a niche where they're only growing certain things because someone else is growing other things, and that eases their production schedules. They have the advantage of also building strong relationships with other growers. So there's a lot of learning potential here. And they can begin to better understand product quality because they can compare products across growers now. And of course, price discovery is easier because now growers can talk about their products and talk about their prices together as they're listing them. So there's less isolation, a stronger sense of community, and again, they build stronger networks with the designers. So you might be wondering, how do these things start? And what you're watching here is a video about the Millgrove Flower Hub. So either the process starts with growers or with designers. So with growers, they often identify the inefficiencies of all delivering to the same place, all doing the same invoicing, all doing payment tracking, and they want to work together to minimize that. Some growers also, especially smaller growers, really are interested in moving into a particular niche and only growing a few things. And so they need to be working with other growers in order to have the materials available that the designers want. On the other hand, things could start with a designer or a florist who are interested in expanding the product options, or who also want to reduce the inefficiency of buying from multiple different farms every week, and who want higher quality product. So what could you expect in terms of sales if you were to start a hub? Well, I can tell you that in 2025, across the country, hubs sold over 500,000 in sales to designers and florists. Now, that might not seem like a lot, or it might seem like a lot, but the real story is, compared to the previous year, so compared to 2024, it's about a 50% growth. So there is growth happening in these hubs across the country, but there's a huge amount of diversity across the country. We have big cities like the GTA, like Edmonton and Calgary in this mix, and then we have more medium-sized cities and even smaller towns in this mix. So the average sales are not that telling, but you should expect in a smaller to mid-sized city sales that maybe start around the $30,000 mark and go upward from there depending on your demographics. You should also expect that as a grower, you could earn on average across the country $6,000 from sales in the hub. Now, again, the average masks diversity. I like to talk about pantyhose here because if you were a pantyhose wearer back in the day, and now I show my age, you know that one size fits no one. They never fit. So the average will not fit you either. Average is mask diversity. So sales per grower could range anywhere from under $1,000, someone who just pops in and sells a few things in a hub, for example, upwards of $30,000 or $40,000 for the grower. And all that depends on the product mix, the grower, the hubs, how many growers there are in the hub, etc. So you can't really go by averages. You need to think about what you want and what you want to build. But if you're a grower and already have an established list of designers that you're selling to, you shouldn't expect your sales to go up significantly. Um, in the short term, at least, the efficiencies you're going to find in terms of the easier invoicing, the easier delivery, um, might be more interesting to you than more sales. And the other advantages of the hub, building a network with growers, are for the long term. And so that might be your interest. If you're a newer grower selling wholesale, or if you're a designer interested in buying local flowers, there are real advantages to a hub for you. And you are the best candidates, I think, for starting a hub because you have the most to gain. So what about the products in the hub? Well, diversity is very important, and I'm going to go on about that for a minute. So in 2025, what you're seeing are the top flowers sold in hubs. Now, if you look at just the top ones, so Dahlia, Zinnia, Cosmos, Lysianthus, basically those four appear in the top four of any hub anywhere in the country. So they're very common products. Then we start to get a little bit more variation. Snapdragons come and go, ranunculus comes and goes from the top list, tulips, peonies. And then when you get down to number 9 and 10 that I'm showing you there, those can really vary from hub to hub. Some hubs don't have scabiosa, some hubs don't have sunflower, but they would have other things. A number of hubs have, foliage branches, for example, in the top, and it varies. But the message here is that those top few flowers, Dahlia, Zinnia, Cosmos, Lisianthus, in pretty much every hub, account for over 50% of the sales. So they're the big numbers. So those products you need in your hub without question. From there on in, it's really about your view of the opportunities. Now, there is a video posted and a pricing list posted from 2025 in these hubs that tells you about some of the opportunities that I see based on what's selling now. And so you can watch that and have a look on that, and that can start you off with your budget crunching and number crunching and so forth. But basically, you need this kind of diversity across hubs to get going. And to emphasize that point of diversity, I want you to look at these two different graphs. So Hub A is a hub that sells throughout the seasons, and so is Hub B. They have the same number of weeks that they're selling. I don't want you to worry so much about the sales numbers here on the left-hand side because these hubs are very different demographics in very different cities. But if you look at the pattern of their sales, on the left, you can see that this first hub has sales that ramp up early in May and they kind of stay up there. They go up and down a bit, but they all stay high. And then they fall rather dramatically when the frost comes and the hub closes somewhere around early October. And they might trail off after that, but basically sales are ending. The other hub, you can see, has this low start and then it's up and down, up and down, up and down all season. I would say the second hub doesn't have the diversity of product all season that the buyers are looking for. How would they sort out this? Well, they would start talking with buyers. What would have brought you buying more flowers? What were you looking for that you didn't find? The second thing about these two hubs is there could be quite significant differences in how frequently the buyers buy. So, this is another thing to think about. You want buyers who are established designers and florists who are going to buy at least every single week. I compared this across some different hubs with an interesting finding. In a larger hub that sells more, we find that about 30%, so a third of the buyers buy every second week at least. So they're very committed buyers. In hubs that sell less, we find that there's very few buyers that buy every single week, and certainly very few who buy every second week. Most buyers buy once a month. Um, and so even though the average amount they buy might be the same, this commitment of the buyers is important. So over time, your hub needs to find buyers who have a lot of weddings and events, a lot of things that they're buying for, so that they have stuff scheduled every week and they're buying from you for it every week. And that will take time. So the message here is diversity in your product mix and commitment in your buyers. So if you're thinking about starting then, it seems like an overwhelming amount of things. But there are some things to think of first. You need to understand your own demographics where you are, in the region where you are, because the sales are going to be driven by the number of weddings and events that happen there. And you need to therefore understand that if you're in an area that doesn't have a lot of that, it might not be the best location for a hub. You might think about selling retail hub or do it yourself wedding hub or something like that, but not necessarily to designers and florists. You need to have the buyers. You also need to have the farmers. So even if you're in an area where there are lots of weddings and events and lots of designers and florists, can you assemble 2 or 3 experienced wholesale farmers to get you started? Because you might be a new grower and it's going to be very hard for you to attract those designers unless you have the diversity in product mix and unless you have a sense of how this works, like what the pricing is, what is it they're looking for, what are the color palettes, all of those things. An experienced wholesale farm will have that. So I think bringing experienced farms into the mix is important. The trick is you need to sweeten the pot for them because they probably already have a group of designers. What's in it for them to start joining a hub? So think about that. And of course, you need a strong design community supporting your hub. I would say you need to start with at least three designers for every farmer that you have, if you can. And you need some of them to be busy designers. And so there's possibilities that you, again, sweeten the pot for those people. Perhaps they get a different pricing, or perhaps they get earlier choices, earlier pick on what's available, etc. The problem is that when growers come together, most growers have some designers they already sell to. And so they're hoping that they sell more, and they might not, because if I'm an experienced grower and I'm used to selling $20,000 to designers in a year now, and I want to join a hub and you invite me, I'm going to bring my designers. I'm going to bring the people who buy from me and say, hey, now instead of buying from me, you can buy from the hub. Well, what that means is now they're seeing your product and they're buying your product. Why would I do that? I would only do that if you are also bringing to the hub designers who I currently do not sell to. So in the end, it's the growers looking at their buyers lists and figuring out collectively, are there more opportunities in the hub than me selling individually? In addition to sorting that out, you need facility. You need a drive up access with a cooler. There is no question about this. You cannot sell wholesale without a cooler. So often, this is one of the farms who will rent out their cooler to the hub as the drop spot, for example, but you need that facility. And of course, you need a tech platform. It could be Open Food Network, but there are others. And if you ever decide you want to try Open Food Network, you just let us know and we'll do a demo for how that works. And you need to decide on who's going to coordinate, who's going to do the stuff, who's going to be building the relationships. Is everyone doing responsible for that? And what does that entail? Who's actually setting up the store every week and managing the orders and tracking the payments? And can you pay them for that function? Open Food Network sometimes does that function on contract if you want a percentage from your hub to come to a contractor to do it, for example. So there's lots of ways to sort it out, but it is stuff you need to talk about. So there's a lot of talking at first. And one of the things that I think is frustrating is new growers are very interested in joining a hub, but are not feeling they're the person to do the initial startup phase and the building of the hub. So that's a bit of a conundrum. And I would say you need to dive into that conundrum. If you're a new grower and you want to start a hub, you need to start a hub. You need to have meetings where you're bringing farmers together, where you're bringing designers together to talk about it. Set up some Zoom meetings for discussions with them. Figure out where you're at, figuring out what the interest is. You are the one as a new grower who has the time to do that, and you're the one who stands to have the most to gain from a hub. The established growers, not so much so. They've already done that for their own businesses. So think about that. But ultimately, the beginning is a year of conversation. That's what the beginning is. Oftentimes, you get hung up in the wrong place when you're starting a hub. You get hung up on the organizational structure. You will eventually need to go there, but those other things are more important first. Start the conversation and don't focus on the structure. Focus on the buyers, focus on the product. Then look at the structure, and you have lots of opportunities here. So some of the hubs are very informal collectives. They're just groups of farmers who have decided to come together, or groups of designers who have started to come together. In some cases, farmers even do their own invoicing in the hub and their own order management. And the hub is more like a common pickup spot. So that's an option. Most commonly, hubs deal with some kind of sole proprietorship. So one of the businesses, either a designer business or a farmer business, kind of plays the role of the host. And they um, take the payments into their bank account and pay out the payments to the growers every week. And it's a pretty simple administrative model. So it's quick to establish, it's easy for everyone, it's very clear on who is doing what. Um, the challenge is that there's no form of profit sharing there. There's surplus at the end, and the host, the sole proprietorship, earns that surplus. And you determine how much of a surplus, but they earn it. Um, the final option is to be an incorporated cooperative. And right now in Canada, we have just one hub doing that. It is the Cooperative Flower Network in Edmonton. And there are real advantages there. There is strong engagement among the growers, fairness for the growers, and profit sharing for the growers. So there's a real strong advantage there. And it could be for growers and buyers, right? It could be a seller and buyer cooperative. There's challenges though. It takes more time and it takes more resources. Um, and not everybody wants to wait that long to get started. You can move between these models. This is not something that has to be locked in for you. You can start informally and gradually move. That's why I say the more important discussions are: who are you? What is your demographic like? What do you need in your area? Who's got what products? Who might be in? That's the more important place to start. Sometimes people also get hung up on the little things. Don't worry about the little things. There's going to be 100 of them, but you're going to be able to sort them out. You've got to get the group together first to do this. So there are things like the budget. How do I pay for the collective? Do I use a markup on the flowers, or what's often called a stem tax? Do I charge membership fees? Do I do both? Do I take a percentage off the farmer sales so every farmer contributes a percentage for the hub? All of these things you can sort out down the road. What about the prices? Is the collective going to take a role in overseeing pricing and quality, for example, so that they become an overseer? Or is it more that everyone is responsible for their own prices and the market kind of decides if the price is too high or too low? What about little things like buckets? They are actually little things, but they seem like big things when you're a farmer. Are you going to get your same buckets back? And what kind of system are you going to put in place for that to happen? Or are you going to just accept that there are going to be different bucket sizes floating around, for example? What about sales outside the hub? Some hubs like to place themselves as a middleman, for example, where they're the ones in contact with the designers around a quality issue or a pre-order or whatever. In other hubs, they encourage the direct connection between the grower and the buyer. And so you can decide what kind of hub you want to be there. And what about spontaneous sales? Some hubs offer like a market where extra things are available that weren't available in the online shop. Um, and others decide not to do that. Some hubs take reservations for flowers and other hubs don't. So you can decide all those processes as you go forward, and really to think about the product mix. Over time, the product mix is really important. And how is your hub going to ensure that? Because everybody's going to have those top sellers. Everybody's going to have the cosmos and the zinnias and the dahlias, etc. But who's going to have the perennials? Who's going to have the lupins? Who's going to have the branches, the foliage branches? Who's going to do the tulips? Like, some things that are not in those top five are really important to your sales, and you're going to need to figure out who's selling them, and that's something you can coach along and modify over time. Don't get hung up in the beginning. So this is what a store looks like. Now I'm recording this on December 7th. So I only have one shop that I see open, Muskoka's open. And of course they're selling holiday greenery and so forth. But this just serves to show you what the shop looks like on the front end when a buyer goes there. So you can see all the shops follow this same template. The products are all uh, pictured down the left, and people take pictures that are really not so much designed for retail pictures, but are detailed close-up pictures so that a designer knows if that's what they want to buy or not. Remember, this is designers shopping, not consumers. And the shops are identified by name, and they can describe their product however they want to describe it, for example. when a buyer comes here, they can search by various terms. They have a full term search bar. They can filter the shop. If they're curious about one of the growers, each grower gets this little website where they can put whatever information they like about themselves and their social links to follow them or contact them and so forth. Products can be sold in any way. You can see evergreen branches are being sold by the pound, but here, for example, red twig dogwood is being sold by the twig. It's $1.11 per twig, and there are 7 twigs in a bunch, coming to $7.75, and so forth. From here on in, it's a straightforward e-commerce. The buyer adds things to their cart, they check out, and at checkout, any kind of options are possible. Delivery options, charges for delivery, credit card payments, cash payments, check payments, e-transfer payments, whatever kind of payments. And so I won't go through a detailed demo of Open Food Network. That would take longer than I have today. But if anybody ever wanted that, you can certainly contact us and we will do that for you. So then, if we start to wrap up here, what are your first steps? You want to get growers together who have, including some who have experience, and you want to get designers together, including some who have experience. And you want new growers and new designers coming to the table too. So you want this diversity of people coming together for discussions. It's a lovely wine and cheese. It's a lovely meeting over coffee, or it's a Zoom, however you want to do it. And the winter, of course, is the perfect time because that's when people have a little bit of space. Stay away from Valentine's Day because your design community is going to be really busy, and get those meetings in March is a perfect time. So do your outreach to local designers. As you get the growers to the table, start creating the buzz with local designers. Would this be a good idea? Who wants in? This is what it's going to look like, etc. Now you need to build an offering list. You need to know from the growers who have said they're in what they grow, what they're planning to grow, and not a fancy future wish list. I would like to grow. You know, we have to be very honest with each other. I know that I can't grow high quality ranunculus. I'm not going to put that on my list. I'm not going to be there saying I'm going to supply something that I can't. You know, you might be able to do marketing when you do your website or social media post, but this is not that. This is being very honest with your fellow growers about what is really something they can count on you for. So build your offering list in a realistic way. Outreach to more growers who can fill your gaps. You now find you have some gaps. And so, what are the growers out there who might be prepared to fill that, and approach them? Now you want to make a budget. By now you have a core group of 2 or 3 people who are sort of the organizers of this thing, and they're going to have to get down to brass tacks and actually create some numbers. And there's some price lists and stuff that you can do to help you with that. And when you're ready, when you've got the people lined up and you think you're ready to start, you can reach out to us for an orientation. You just email support@openfoodnetwork.ca and we can do a demo. But we can't do a demo until you know some things, until you know where you are, how many people, roughly how you think you're going to work. So get your ducks in a row around the people and the products, and then give us a call. I hope you found this useful. I have to tell you, it's bittersweet for me to see this project come to an end because I really have enjoyed every second of it. And I want to thank you primarily for putting up with my lousy use of tech in these videos. It really was such a foreign thing that I was thrown into. I've learned a lot doing it. Well, now as we come to the end, and I'm retiring somewhat from Garden Party Flower Farm, a lot of you have asked, what if I should continue these videos and continue the idea of educating flower farms as something that I do in my retirement? Well, at first I said no, but I'm seriously considering that. So I would like to hear your feedback about that idea, and what is it you would like to see on farm workshops, videos, YouTube? Is there a certain focus you would like me to take, etc.? And so I've put my email here, Garden Party Flower Farm. Drop me a line if you would like to have a say in what I become. as I move my way through and understand the new world of being a retired flower farmer. And thank you so much for all your support and attention.